Well, happy Saturday. Welcome, everybody. It's time for Just a Thought. I am Darrell Watkins, the Senior Minister of the Sunshine Cathedral. And on early Saturday afternoons, I have a little chin wag with the Reverend Cindy Lippert, who is one of the founders and directors of sagecoachingandcounseling.com. That's sagecoachingandcounseling.com. They offer a lot of services: business coaching, personal coaching, life coaching, therapeutic counseling, spiritual direction. They offer it all. And during this pandemic, some of those services are offered on sliding scale or even on donation basis because of the crisis. So that's sagecoachingandcounseling.com. If you want to know more about the Sunshine Cathedral, about our programming or how you can support us, that's sunshinecathedral.org. And that is the last, that's the last word from our sponsors you will hear. Until next time. We have, if this is your first time to be with us, Just a Thought is where Cindy and I, and now you know who we are and what we do in the world, discuss a thought from somebody probably wiser than us, usually no longer on the planet with us. And we take a thought of theirs and then we see where that takes us in our conversation. The thought today comes from Edgar White Burrill. Edgar White Burrill, he was an author and I think mostly known as a writer, but he was also a New Thought teacher, leader. And in fact, this quote comes from a speech he delivered at the International New Thought Alliance back in the first half of the 20th century. Edgar White Burrill says to us today, if the unassailable power, capital U, capital P, talking about the divine, if the unassailable power can hold the stars in heaven as it does, can it not hold you in all your activity serene and unafraid? All this energy of the universe is yours to use. One more time. If the unassailable power can hold the stars in heaven as it does, can it not hold you in all your activity serene and unafraid? All this energy of the universe is yours to use. Is that true, Cindy Lippert? Is there this unlimited amount of energy that we can tap into and direct? Is the energy of the universe ours to use?
It is. If only we could hang on to that thought and remember, we wouldn't be afraid. There's so much fear right now during this pandemic. There are people who are terrified of getting COVID, absolutely terrified. There are others that are terrified of wearing a mask. They think the mask will make them sick. There are others that are terrified that there's a government conspiracy or some kind of conspiracy. So there's a lot of fear that is surrounding this whole time of quarantining and separation. It's inhumane for us not to be able to see each other and touch each other. It's against human nature. And this has gone on too long. And you're beginning to see it with your friends, with your colleagues, with people that you meet out and about doing whatever you need to do for your chores to keep your life going. If only we could hang on to the idea that the universe is always for us, never against us. And it's only in our own belief, what we absolutely believe at our core, that oftentimes trips us up.
I remember these times of crisis are sort of emotional and energetic minefields. And I remember in the 90s, in the late 80s and throughout the 90s, when HIV was largely unmanageable. We got AZT and it was a pretty toxic drug, but it helped some people for a while. And then we got another drug, and then we got another drug, and each one would last about a year and a half, 2 years before it stopped working. And then in the late 90s, they found combination therapies where they would mix drugs, and they had a new class of drugs called protease inhibitors. And so they would they found these combinations of drugs, and that's when things turned around. But before that, we had about a decade. I mean, sometimes these things can last a while. We had about a decade of just fear and uncertainty and trying one thing and then the next. It was contained to certain communities largely. And so there wasn't the national panic. It didn't shut down airports and governments, and it wasn't as as people could dismiss it because they didn't think it would affect them. And then sometimes it would anyway, but they could still live their day-to-day lives without being super focused on it. However, if you were in the LGBTQ plus community, or if you were from certain countries, or if you had to have blood transfusions in the 80s for medical conditions, this was not a them problem. This could happen to us. But I remember all of the crazy things the straws we would grasp at. And looking back, you think, oh, how naive. I remember people were doing, and some of these things I would do, and some of these things I had friends that would do, or whatever. But people were taking coffee enemas. That was supposed to be, an amazing thing for people, help you be healthy. Garlic enemas, all kinds of nutritional and naturopathic and homeopathic remedies. People would light blue candles. Blue was supposed to be a healing color. People do acupuncture, Reiki. I even knew once a 12-step group, and instead of gambling or alcoholism or drugs or codependency, the thing they were admitting they were powerless over, the things they were turning to their higher power to return them to sanity, was HIV. And I actually think that was a pretty brilliant approach, actually. But we're just doing anything. We just do anything. And so when I hear about people, they're afraid of this, they're afraid of that, there's this conspiracy, there's that conspiracy, there's this, ridiculous, putting ultraviolet lights on certain parts of your body or whatever, or taking this drug or this vitamin, or I'm a big vitamin advocate. I take vitamins every day. But it just reminds me, this is what we do. I'm almost encouraged, even though some of these things sound crazy, and even though they seem a little naive or a little desperate, I am almost encouraged that hope is so indomitable that we will always try one more thing, that we will give something a try, even if it sounds silly. So I'm almost encouraged that there is almost this innate knowing that there must be a power. Melinda Kramer's famous prayer, is there a power in this vast universe that can heal me? That question, with the hint of the answer must be yes, is in us. And so, yeah, maybe the coffee enema is not going to do a lot of good, but that we thought it might, and we'd give it a try, I think says something wonderful about us. I think that says we know there has to be something. And maybe it's not the thing we're trying right now, but there's got to be something, because we have, in this vast universe, there's all this power. And if I just keep trying, there was something called Northern Lights Alternatives back in the early days of the AIDS crisis. And it was like a weekend empowerment thing, like support group and encouragement, blah, blah, blah. And it was started by a woman who was in the theater, in the New York theater. And I don't remember if she was a costumer, an actor, or stage manager. I don't know what she did, but she was in the theater. And of course, a lot of her friends in the New York theater in the 80s were getting sick. And so she started this group because I believe it was her son had contracted some disease earlier. And she went to shamans, she went to specialists, she tried experimental treatments, she went to like faith healers, she tried everything in the world, and he got better. But because she was trying everything, she didn't know which one worked.
Yeah.
And so her philosophy was try everything. And that's what Northern Lights Alternatives was like. Try the support group, try the new drug that's coming out, try prayer, try everything. Something may work, and you may not even know which thing it was, but there must be a power, an energy, a field of possibilities that we can plug into. And so don't give up. I just think I think we innately suspect that there is this energy field, or this person, or this presence, or this power, or this group of angels, or, our mythologies differ, but there has to be this thing that we can plug into, even if we haven't found it yet.
Well, the idea that comes to mind, ask any person with chronic fatigue or any other debilitating autoimmune disorder, and they can tell you um, one of the problems is you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you're tired of having a doctor tell you, why do you want to be sick? Why, what is wrong with you? And you look at the doctor and say, I don't want to be sick. You just haven't figured out what's wrong. This is on you. This isn't on me. I'm telling you, and so ask any person that is chronically fighting something and without any answers of what it is they're fighting. It's an invisible enemy. They will try anything, literally anything, even if it defies logic, they'll try anything. And then they'll also go through years of, I've had it, don't suggest one more thing. I'm done. This is as good as it's going to be. And then hope springs eternal and something new comes up. For me, it's not unlike dieting. I've read every diet book. I've read every nutrition book. I've read every theory. And, son of a gun, it boils down to portion and calories. It just does. And this is not good news for those of us that don't have a perfect immune system and a perfect metabolism. And I'm 70 years old, so that's screwed up right there. So, but what do? Do you just quit? No, I'm on a diet again. So, and you just keep trying. But human nature, I believe, is programmed for whole life, wholeness, and not for fear and terror and giving up. So we keep trying. And in that hope, I believe that is where the universe is saying, hey, just tell me what you want. I'm here to support you.
Yeah, I remember about 12 years ago, I went through a debilitating depression. I've gone through 2 or 3 like that in my life. I mean, I can have a bad day anytime, but this was not a bad day or a bad week. This was a bad year, right? And that's happened a couple of times in my life. And I'd been on a medication for about a decade before that, and it quit working. And that, plus a lot of circumstances in my life, all conspired to just bring down. And I tried everything. I tried spiritual direction. I burdened friends. I went into therapy, back into therapy. I changed medications. I mean, I tried everything. And eventually the miracle happened. And I was, life was good again. But yeah, it was not a quick fix. It was not I literally tried everything I knew to try, and all at once. And the good news of that is that it led to something. And I've seen that over and over and over. People who the doctors can't seem to get the meds right, and they just go from from a zombie to manic to almost evil to light and sound torments them to and then finally the right combination of the right amounts of the right drugs, and life is beautiful. So what I love about that story is it's not that anybody suffers. I don't want that, but that if you don't give up, there's really reasonable hope to believe that this can lead to something better. And at the same time, I try to be very careful not to promise things, because we all discover things at our own pace and in our own way. And it can be almost cruel to say, if you follow this formula, it will work out for you this way in this amount of time. We can't promise that. And it doesn't work that way for everybody. So I get very annoyed when people if you just tried the right diet, you just haven't tried the right one. Because, the one that worked for me, I'm so glad it worked for you. God bless you. I hope it works for you from this day forward. Right. And that has nothing to do with my story. Right?
Yeah, well, my story is I lost my memory when I was 39 years old. I was driving to my computer programming software company, and I had an executive position at the time. And all of a sudden, I didn't know what town I was in. I had no idea where I was. And it lasted for what seemed like hours. It was probably maybe a minute, maybe, but it was the most terrifying thing. And from that moment forward, my almost photographic memory became something completely different. I had to walk around with what I called my Bible. I had a notebook. I wrote everything down because I would never remember it. And I literally did try everything for years. And many things worked until they didn't. And that is by definition a placebo. It is. And there have been many incarnations of why this happened to me, many ideas. But here I am today, a working actor, memorizing scripts. And back then I lost my my career in computer software. So, you know, my memory isn't perfect today, but it's a million times better than it was. And why? Because hope springs eternal. I kept trying. I believed that there was a power big enough to help me through this and help me find, you know, what would help, basically.
Yeah, that's what I always want to offer people. Not promises, because I know the theory. If you just promise it, they'll believe it so strongly that it'll probably happen for them. And that's great, except for the times that it doesn't. And then people are heartbroken. What did I do wrong? Why is the universe against me? Oh, all of this is crap. And that's what I don't want ever to happen to anyone.
Yeah.
And so I always talk about our philosophy, our thoughts, our feelings, our attitudes, our habits, that they influence. They have great influence, but I never offer guarantees because life is just volatile and random, and it seems cruel to say, well, if this whole community had higher consciousness, then they wouldn't have attracted, you know, a storm or a violent attacker, or, you know, they wouldn't, you know, they would have somehow been guided not to build their house under power lines that caused some problem, or whatever, or, you know, and I don't believe that. I don't believe that, but I do believe that we can get through most things, that we can recover from most things, that we can keep hope and joy through almost all things, and that the things that help us do all that also influence. They can make things, they can even change the outcome of a lot of things. I really, really, really believe that, but I always want to present it in a way that we are never blaming victims.
No.
Or taking people's joy from them because it didn't work according to the playbook.
That's right. You may recall I had colorectal cancer, and little did I know at the time that it ran in my family. There's even a syndrome named after our family name. And I had a congregant, I was building a church at that time. I had a congregant that asked one of my staff, what does Cindy think she did to get cancer? What does she think she did to manifest cancer? And I thought, whose congregation is she in that she came up with that idea? We don't ever blame the victim. We don't know why a person gets cancer. Oh, I know there are so many people right now that are listening that are saying, oh, no. If you know, have a problem with your throat, is what you don't want to say. You know, Louise Hay did a great service and a great disservice. She gave us a primer. She did not give us the doctorate program. Okay, those are training wheels. Mm-hmm. And, you know, to say that a person has done this to themselves, oh my God, you know, it's one of the cruelest things we can do ever, to blame the victim, because the victim doesn't even want to be a victim, for heaven's sake.
Every healer that we study, who isn't currently, you know, on the planet, every healer, including Jesus himself, every healer we have ever studied made a transition from this life experience to another. You know what I mean? Things happen. And there is such a thing as collective consciousness. And so, yes, there's what I'm thinking, but there's also what we're thinking. And not every thought manifests. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. The thoughts held, the habitual thoughts held habitually manifest eventually. So it's not every thought it's the habit thoughts, and it's not just my thoughts, it's our thoughts. And what is as important as any of that
Yeah,
is how do we get through it, overcome it, and share the stories of victory. That's what I'm excited about. I don't even care how you got it. I'm excited that you don't got it.
that's right. Well, Reverend Carol Biggs has a great story. She and her friend years ago used to say, "Oh, well, if we're afraid of something, we'll manifest it. Oh, I'm afraid I'll win the lottery. I'm really afraid I'll win the lottery." You know, how's that working?
Yes. But if we think about our good desires, um, sometimes we'll think of something very, very specific. I want this thing. I want this MacBook Pro, this computer right here. But what I want is something that's going to serve me, something that's going to make my life easier, something that's going to help me do my work, something that's going to help me enjoy myself, something that I can afford and that I can travel with me and keep me connected to the world. That's what MacBook Pro represents to me. And I can get that maybe by getting a MacBook Pro or maybe by some other means. And so, yeah, we say we want a thing, but that thing represents probably something larger. And I think we do ourselves a disservice if we don't realize the larger thing that we are getting because it didn't show up in the package we said we wanted.
That's right.
So if I say that I want to be Cindy's very best friend, well, that's a good enough desire. But what I'm saying is, I want a reliable friend. I want someone I can count on, someone who cares about me, someone who'll miss me if I'm gone. Well, that person can exist for me, and they may or may not look like Cindy Lippert.
That's right.
But if I make it be about the package, I may miss a lot of blessings that the universe is just throwing at me. But I tried to limit it.
Yeah, people are looking for love. Oh, but I didn't mean like that. It's like, do you want really what is your goal? What's the why? What's the why and the what there? And the rest of it will show up. But the idea that we have a power bigger than us is very comforting. The fact that we have free will, that power has no agenda for us, that we are the chooser that is chosen. We do the choosing.
Mhm.
And that's very exciting. And it's very healing and comforting at a time when there's so much fear.
Yeah.
And we're living in that time right now.
You and I are both divine scientists. In fact, you hold a couple of divine science ordinations.
Yeah.
This conversation, it just popped in my head about another divine scientist, F. Bernadette Turner, who was a psychologist as well as a divine science minister, and later an Episcopal priest. She became a priest in her 80s. But for most of her ministry, she was a divine science minister and practitioner. And she wrote a book, and actually I think she wrote a couple. And in one of her books, she writes about a woman who wanted to manifest a pet. She wanted a pet. She was lonely. She lived alone. And she decided that the cure for that was a pet. She, of course, thought that meant cat or dog. She probably had a preference. She might accept the other one, but she wanted one, she'd take the other, cat or dog situation. But she never could find one or the right one or whatever. I forget what the holdup was, that she couldn't, find a dog or a cat. But meanwhile, she left her window open one day and a bird flew in. Literally, a companion flew into her house. And at first she's like, how do I get this bird out of my house? And then she, and the bird wouldn't leave. And she finally realized, this is my pet. My pet came to me. I literally magnetized the pet. It wasn't a cat or a dog. And she fell in love with that damn bird. And that was her companion, her pet. And she wasn't lonely anymore. She loved that bird. That bird apparently loved her. The bird saw her out. And I think that happens a lot. I think the universe is sending us a lot of birds that we're dismissing because they don't look like cats.
Exactly. Well, one of my very best friends passed a year ago, and it's devastating. You can't make old friends. It takes years to learn that shorthand that you have with each other and the history and the experiences and all of that. And lo and behold, a new good friend showed up, and it was almost like, talk about not really recognizing that, because This person looks nothing like the friend that just passed, but there were innate qualities and integrity, character, all of that. It was all there. And this person wanted to be friends. And, it's a wonderful journey. Our life of serendipity, my friend Sue Pelicano calls it serendipity doodah. And I love that because it's just the zest of life. When we look for serendipity, it's there, and it just makes life so much more fun.
Well, Cindy, we are out of time. We were out of time about 5 minutes ago, but I can't ever shut you up.
I'm like that.
The time constraints are arbitrary. We make them up. But we need to wind down. And so what a rich discussion we've had today. I hope lots of people are watching it. If you have friends that you'd like to watch this, who, they're busy right now, they can watch it later. Cindy's probably going to post it on her page. It's on the Sunshine Cathedral Facebook page. It will be on the Sunshine Cathedral New Thought community group. I may even post this one on the Divine Science page, because this is pretty basic divine science business today. So you can find it. It's gonna be all over Facebook. So tell your friends about it. But let's end with the thought that began this really good conversation from Edgar White Burrill. If the unassailable power can hold the stars in heaven as it does, can it not hold you in all your activity, serene and unafraid? All this energy of the universe is yours to use. It's just a thought, but I think it's a good one. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, everyone. God bless you.